VoiceAmerica.com.
Welcome to Crime Prevention 101 with host Susan Bartlestone. We're so happy you've joined us this weekend. Over the next hour, you'll learn the tips, tricks, and vital information that'll help you keep yourself confident and safe. Now, here's the host of Crime Prevention 101, Susan Bartlestone.
If you and your family just finished dinner and you went upstairs and found that while you were eating, your house had been burgled, well, that very audacious thing happened to more than 3,000 homes, according to the FBI. Compliments of my guest for today, Walter T. Shaw, who is a super jewel thief and author of a brand new book, A License to Steal, which describes his exploits as part of the Dinnertime Gang and his induction into the Mafia, and more importantly, the story of his relationship with his genius inventor father, from whom he was estranged for about 25 years. And also today we are continuing on with the theme for the month, which is property crime. Well, before I introduce Walter, I found a few weird burglary stories and an item that I thought might be of interest. As I often say, crime prevention is a serious subject, of course, but criminals can also be idiotic and stupid and just plain weird, and that kind of gives me hope, believe it or not, because I think it just, for me to think that not every criminal out there is cold-blooded and merciless and undefeatable, that makes me feel better. So I want to a couple of weird burglary stories that I like and that I collect that I thought might give you some hope, too. Here is a stupid burglar caught out by home video. And a Philadelphia teenager has been jailed after filming the aftermath of a burglary with the video camera that he stole. Joseph Rios and two accomplices recorded footage of money and Christmas presents they took, and then the 10-minute video shows them laughing and bragging about their crime. This is actually very common. I've heard quite a number of stories about them doing it. They even filmed Rios' driver's license moments before an accomplice used it when he bought cigarettes. He was 19 years old. He was sentenced to, at least they sentenced him, between 2 and 4 years in prison. And the Montgomery County prosecutor said it's the most bold and simultaneously stupid criminal act I've ever encountered. Well, I've heard a few like that, but yeah, it's stupid, and that gives me hope. Here's another one that I kind of liked. Burglar arrested after hailing undercover police cab. A suspected burglar has been arrested in New York after hailing a taxi being driven by an undercover policeman. Adrian Moraine and an accomplice are alleged to have broken into an apartment and stolen jewelry and electrical goods and a bicycle. And then they hailed a passing taxi to make their escape. And when the driver started asking them questions, and he was a police lieutenant, they tried to flee. And the lieutenant said, of all the cabs to hail, you got to hail a police cab. And I guess it was good luck for the cops and bad luck for the perp. I guess so. All right, here's another one, and this one I thought was just kind of really awed me. Computer burglars paralyze a city, and this took place in Santiago, Chile. Burglars have stolen computers. Burglars broke into the traffic control center there in the capital of Santiago, capital city, and stole 17 computers, including those used to coordinate traffic lights in the main avenues. Residents in the city of 5.5 million people faced mammoth traffic jams that day. And some drivers complained that it took twice as long to get to work. Well, I bet it did. The center's director said that it would take at least 3 days to fully restore the system. Gosh, I hope they caught those guys. because that's really, really horrible. Here is another one that I thought was kind of funny. A fridge frightens a burglar away. A chocoholic intruder was apparently frightened off by a refrigerator that sounded like a burglar alarm. The owner of the house, and this was in Düsseldorf, Germany. So this is not just the U.S., folks. This is everywhere around. There's stupid criminals. The owner of the house in Düsseldorf woke up during the night when she heard the noise the fridge makes when the door is left open. So she got up and she closed the door again, and she went back to bed. And the next morning, she discovered that a living room window had been forced open and an empty chocolate wrapper was lying on the floor nearby. So the burglar obviously had gotten hungry and raided the refrigerator for something, and the refrigerator noise scared him off. And it was actually a Cadbury bar of chocolate. And that was the only thing that was missing in the house. So get yourself a noisy refrigerator. All right, here's another one that I thought was kind of interesting. A 23-year-old was charged with burglary early on Christmas morning in Chevy Chase, Maryland, when he and his wife heard a prowler in the house and called 911. Despite the clamor of several squad cars arriving and 7 officers rushing into the living room with guns drawn, Sosa, by that time, reportedly was seated under the tree, blissfully opening the presents that were under the tree. So Roger Augusto Sosa was caught opening those Christmas presents. I guess he just really was lonely for Christmas. And here's one other cute one that I thought. Model citizen Roger Harlow was charged with 81 counts of burglary. He was an insurance agent, a part-time Sunday school teacher, and yet he was accused of entering the homes of friends and townspeople over a 10-year period when he knew that they would be away, and stealing about 100,000 of their valuables. Stealing about 1,000 different valuables from these people, and these were his friends and his neighbors. According to police, Harlow once was late to a golfing foursome because he stopped off to burglarize the homes of the other golfers. And because he knew where they were. They weren't going to be home. And he once excused himself mid-May during a lunch date to burglarize his companion's home that he was having lunch with. And that's kind of smart because you know that you're not going to get broken into on that one. So he was a smart, stupid guy. Okay, and one other item that I thought I would mention today. Now, our guest today, who was a super thief and never got caught in the act, and as many robbers do, police departments will auction off some of the goods that they get from these raids when they catch these burglars. So if you would like to bid for online apparel or electronics or any other seized or unclaimed items from the police departments nationwide, you can go to www.propertyroom.com. Something there might actually catch your fancy. Okay, I'm going to introduce my guest today. When we come back from break, we're going to be talking with Walter T. Shaw. Walter, as I said, he is the author of A License to Steal. And I love that title. He's going to tell you how that title came about. The FBI blamed Walter's crew for a staggering 3,000 jobs, worth more than $70 million, going on since the early 1970s. In 1968, he became a recognized soldier for a national mafia boss, and in 1969, he joined the dinnertime burglary ring of jewel thieves, so called because they robbed when people were home and eating dinner. Right? That's not the usual kind of burglar, but they were notorious, this dinner-time burglary ring. In 1974, Walter broke off and formed his own burglary crew. Among their alleged victims were Liberace, the DuPonts, and the Firestone families. He was never caught in the act, but he was ratted out and convicted on 4 different counts and sentenced to 49 years of imprisonment, of which he spent just a little more than 11 years. And he lost touch with his father in the process of all this, but eventually reconciled with him 18 months before his dad died of cancer in 1996. Okay, so wow, that is some resume. Walter has appeared on Oprah, he's been on Montel, he's been on Rachel Ray, he's been on Inside Edition, and now he is going to be on Crime Prevention 101. So when we come back from break, help me welcome Walter T. Shaw.
News, opinion,
Can you hear me?
your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com. There's a purpose revolution sweeping the world. Now more than ever before, in the midst of so many things they could do, people are asking what they should do. Since 1991, John Stanko has been helping people all over the world answer these questions. Now, John is bringing his purpose message and philosophy to Voice America, where you will hear from people of purpose like John, who have found what they were created to do. Join John and his guests from around the world every week on his show, Your Purpose Quest, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. Right here on Voice America. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartlestone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime, How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartlestone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today. Have you ever thought about having your own internet talk show? Well, if you said yes, then click About Us. Then click Be a Host to get more information. Or just call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417.
Say that again?
480-294-6417. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone.
Okay, and welcome back to Crime Prevention 101, and I'm here talking now with my guest for today, Walter T. Shaw, the author of A License to Steal. Hi, Walter.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I gave you a great introduction, Walter, and I said that you've appeared on all these great shows, Oprah and so forth, and now you're on Crime Prevention 101. I am so delighted to have you here with me.
That's good. I enjoy
Now, Walter,
Yes.
Tell me, what made you write this book?
Well,
I read this book. I love this book, by the way.
Do you like it?
I did like it.
It's a redemption piece. It's a story about my father, mostly, as you read the book, I'm sure.
Yes.
And it's to let the world know that they take these inventions as their everyday as staples are for granted, not knowing that he was the creator of 39 great telephone breakthrough communication products. Conference call forwarding, speakerphone back in 1948.
That's right. He was a genius inventor.
Yeah, way ahead of his time. That's what the problem was. He was 30 years ahead of his time, and the world was just catching up to him when he died.
And he never got any credit for these inventions.
That's why I wrote the book, because they didn't know he had the patents. They didn't know he was the inventor, and he was the sole practitioner of these inventions before Bell Telephone. I mean, they didn't have anything on my father when it came to his genius.
And it was because of the mistreatment that your father received at the hands of the executives of the phone company and some of the other bad business partners he ran into that actually turned you towards the life that you had as a burglar and caused this reconciliation, correct?
Exactly. I chose to go into a life of crime, and I wouldn't say it's all that, but it definitely swayed me at a young age to see that there was an injustice in America and an injustice in big corporations. And it fueled my animosity towards an injustice that was done, and I just went into a life of crime and destroyed my whole life in the process.
You were able to take that anger at them and channel it in some other kind of a direction.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought it was very interesting how the title of the book came about, A License to Steal.
Well, Carlo Gambino had told me in the atrium room at the Senate hearing when my dad was being prosecuted by the McClellan Senate Subcommittee on Organized Crime.
And this was those big televised Senate hearings right? Bob
1959 through 63. And Joe Valachi was the chief candidate and the chief informant at that time, divulging what the lawyers and prosecutors knew. There was a thing called mafia in America. And it was his testimony that would lead to those investigations, and they formed that subcommittee on it. And my father was drug into it because he had made a gambling device that was used by the biggest bookmakers of that time, and they were doing $30,000 a week due to my dad's invention called the black box, the blue box, the cheese box, where you make long-distance calls toll-free, and they were untraceable. And
this is something that the bookies were using to hide their dealings, correct?
Exactly, and actually call forwarding was invented at that time to follow the bookmakers around the boroughs so they wouldn't be able to get arrested. So that's really what call forwarding had gotten made for before it got patented in 1964 or 67. It was made to be used with the bookmakers to follow them around, and of course the black box was used to make long-distance calls that were untraceable. It was at the same time Bell had created the direct dialing, because up until the 50s, you couldn't direct dial. You had to use an operator assistant, but they made this new equipment where you could do direct dialing. That's the only way it would work.
That's right. I remember that.
Right. So that's the two inventions that they brought them before the Senate committee, and of course McClellan told my father, "Go and sin no more," when he admitted he was 100% sorry he made it. And Bobby Kennedy, they didn't prosecute him. They didn't find him guilty of going to prison. But Florida had a law that Bell Telephone put on the books called unauthorized attachment to Bell lines. And for that misdemeanor, because my dad wouldn't tell him how the black box worked, they put him in jail for a year and a day in Dade County Jail, Stockade.
And it was at that hearing.
Yes, exactly.
That Carlo Gambino, the Godfather.
Well, he wasn't then, but he became...
he wasn't then?
Yeah, he wasn't the Godfather. He was only in his 50s. He would become the boss of that family, known as the Gambino family. And he turned to me and he says, "Remember one thing about these judges, these lawyers, these politicians, and Mr. Bobby Kennedy. They all have a license to steal, and we don't need one. They're the bad guys, not us." And that's where the title comes from.
And that's pretty awesome to hear as a 12-year-old little boy.
Well, definitely.
And you obviously never forgot that.
Never. I never forgot those words. And of course, it would become true as you see government officials and politicians and senators and governors. They all feel they have the impunity to break and be above the law, as we call it. Clinton was a great president in a lot of aspects for our economy and for our country, but he also thought he could break the law and do the things he did in the testimony and getting impeached and never getting thrown out of office, as you see.
Well,
Nixon got impeached.
I don't want to get into Clinton.
No, I know.
License to steal is a license to steal, I guess. But
all government officials, they feel they can do these things. Most of them. I mean, it's just it's a contrary thing where They just sometimes feel they can do what they want, and that's what Carla was trying to let me know.
That's what Carla Gambino was definitely definitely expounding there, and I just think it's so interesting that your father he was driven to this because he just couldn't make the system work for him.
No.
the way it should have.
No. Absolutely
now, shortly after that, you were only about 17 when you actually first started getting involved with the mafia, and
he was in jail. Actually, he was in prison at the time.
I'm
he was doing that year and a day, and I had broke off and moved into my grandmother's house, and I had got a hold of the people that my father had known in the past in the 60s, and I told them I wanted to, go into, I wanted to become a courier, is what I told them. And they set me up in carrying money to New York from loan sharks.
And that's how you started, and that's how you got your reputation as being fearless.
Right.
If I'm not
exactly.
corrected, because you did a bad thing.
Yeah, I know.
You stole.
You did read the book.
I read the book. Yes,
yeah,
I did.
I opened a suitcase that I was carrying in New York, and I staged a phony beating, and I absconded with $96,000 at that time.
$96,000.
Yeah.
And they were not happy.
Well, they caught me. Yeah, I got caught.
They caught you.
Because the first thing I did as a kid, 18 years old, as I started spending money, I bought a new car for my wife. I bought me a new car. I was going to the racetrack. I mean, I was doing stupid things what a 19-year-old would do with that kind of cash, I was flamboyant with it. And, of course, they were monitoring me, and I thought I got away with it. And as you read, you find out I didn't get away with it because I got a terrific, horrendous beating. And the only thing that saved me is the guy that gave me ordered the beating had told him I had enough. I had a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and I was banged up pretty good.
And that was because, so you say in the book, because they had a great deal of respect for your father.
Exactly.
And the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting was that they broke the rules. There was a code that they were supposed to have.
Call me to a sit down.
Sit down before they whack you.
Yeah, they have to.
You have to talk about it, right?
Yeah, we have to discuss. I'm guilty, and if they found me guilty, which they would have, then I have to pay the money back, or they go the next step and put me in the hospital. And they were not just supposed to beat you up first. No, absolutely not. So what they did is they gave me the beating as a warning, and as you see, I was shocked that my dad knew these rules because he calls for the sit-down, and we go to the sit-down in a place called Coney Island in 163rd Street at that time. And we meet, and then my dad says, you're paid in full. You gave him a beating without calling for a meeting. And that's the first time I saw my dad knew these rules. I was in shock. He says, so therefore you're paid in full, and he owes you nothing. And if you want to go the next step, then I'll call the old man in New York, which everybody knew who that meant. I'll call the old man in New York and tell him, the truth about this. And, do you want to take it that level? That your father's intervention and their respect for him saved you. And I think that gave you the reputation, though, of being the kind of person that would be really good to do burglaries. Exactly. So the next step was Frank. Gave you cred. Gave you street cred, right? Yeah, exactly. So Frank brought down his nephew, who was his nephew through marriage. Now, Frank, you're talking about... Sacco. Yeah. The guy I was carrying money for in New York. The one that I had robbed. So he sent his nephew down to meet me to see if I had what it took to be a cat burglar. And at this time, Pete was the leader of that gang called the Dinnertime Burglars. So Pete came down to meet me with his brother-in-law, Don, and we formed a relationship and a friendship, and I started as their driver. And from there, I went into the field, and for 8 years, I learned the fine art of burglary. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions about this dinnertime burglaring because this, being a crime prevention show, this is extremely interesting to me. Now, you said in the book that the person that originated this was a guy by the name of Frank Bova. Oh, the SS guy from World War II. Exactly. He was trained with the Rangers. Exactly. They said Rangers. Uh-huh. And the reason I know that they were the Derby Rangers is because my background, I have extensive training in World War II combatives, which came from that training that they gave those guys in the Derby Rangers. I was actually, I thought that was so interesting. My teacher, his father
was a member of that group there. Maybe there was a large number of those. They were actually a lot of Allied forces involved in that. Maybe my teacher's father actually knew this guy, Frank Bova.
Right.
But he came back with these stealth tactics and so forth, break-in tactics.
Yeah, they were taught to break into the Gestapo in World War II to steal strategic plans of what the Allies were going to do, and vice versa. How to combat that. So that's what he learned, in World War II. When he came back to America, as all soldiers from wars, he couldn't even get a job.
That's right.
They couldn't find a place to work, and that was the Great Depression just about we were coming out of, as you know. And he couldn't find a job, and he was up in upper state New York is where he resided, in New Rochelle, Westchester, and Yonkers, in that area. He was there, and Pete was on his way up. He was just a young street tough. He was an assault and battery guy, and he'd just done time for beating up a cop and all these things. He was 19 or 20 when he got out of jail or whatever it was. And Bova took him in, and of course, he told him who he was. He said, and he tells him about robbing in World War II, the German Gestapo, and he says so he became a cat burglar when he came back to America. And Pete was in shock.
He was able to apply his knowledge to a different direction.
Exactly. And he was robbing the state homes at that time.
Well, I in a horrible way, it's very enterprising of him.
Well, the ring goes back to World War II. I mean, that's how far back this is traced. Mm-hmm. And Frank practiced on into his 60s. He was in his 60s when he met Pete, and he was still active at that time. He was semi-retired to a degree, but he had still done a few jobs. He was very wealthy, extremely wealthy. And he taught Pete the fine art of burglary.
So tell me a little bit about the concept of the dinner-time burglary. Now, I tell people that
Susan, the concept is that people are creatures of habit, and that's what I try to stress to you all the time. They keep their jewelry in the same spots in the master bedroom. They have alarm systems, and they don't update them. They have a regular alarm system put in their house, and the technology every year gets updated. How electronics
Walter, can I back you up 1 second? Now, most people, you're not going to be robbing the little house on the corner.
Right.
This was not the target for the dinner time burglary. You guys were the elite of the burglars.
Right.
You were jewel thieves. You're not going to. You told me when we talked earlier off the air that you're not going to take someone's TV or their computers. You were looking for some very specific things from some very specific people.
Exactly.
Can you kind of just run that down a little bit? How you picked your targets, who you were out to rob.
Our fence had the Fortune 400, 500, whatever it's called, books called Who's Who in America and the Ultra Rich in America. And in there it tells who they are and their addresses and where they live and how many homes they got and, where they spend their winter vacations or summer vacations. So we targeted that because we knew that those people would be able to have the jewelry that we're looking for or the fur coats that we could turn in and sell and make a big profit, So that's the kind of homes we targeted, 30,000, 40,000 square foot homes.
And these were celebrities.
Yes, they're very wealthy people.
Now, I mentioned in my introduction and in the book you mentioned Liberace. Mm-hmm. I'm really curious to know what you took from Liberace.
Well, we're accused of it. There's been no hard evidence that we.
Okay, we're not copping to this. This is just alleged. Okay, and it's alleged that the DuPonts,
Firestones, Johnson & Johnson, Bat 69 Liquors, Colt 45 firearms, the grandson.
Okay. All right, Walter. Yeah. We're going to hold that thought for 1 second.
Okay.
We're going to be back in about 30 seconds. From our break.
Okay.
Ask the experts. Call toll-free right now, 1-866-472-5787. And ask our All-Star team to answer your question. That's 1-866-472-5787.
Thank you for calling.
VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartlestone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartlestone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
In the spirit of Have Couch Will Travel, Dr. Carol Lieberman creates a haven of sanity in an increasingly insane world. Each day we are bombarded with news of events that have never crossed our wildest nightmares. Society is spiraling out of control and everyone is reeling from it. But now there's an answer. The best way to keep sane in this insane world is to tune in to Dr. Carol's Couch on Voice America. Dr. Carol, a certified media psychiatrist, will broadcast live from her Beverly Hills office every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Call or log in and get help with whatever is sending you reeling, whenever you need a soothing voice to calm and advise you. That's Dr. Carol's Couch every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time here on America's Voice, voiceamerica.com.
Talk, talk, talk. That's all we do is talk. If you'd like to talk, call us toll-free right now at 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787.
That's it.
VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone.
Okay, welcome back, and we're talking with Walter T. Shaw, the author of A License to Steal, about his story as one of the dinner-time burglars and the story of his father and the redemption that he was able to achieve with his father. Okay, so we were actually at the point where I told us how you targeted these people. Mm-hmm. Why you started saying that you picked dinner time.
Right.
To rob these people. Now, these were big houses, correct?
Yeah, 30,000, 40,000 square foot homes.
So you could actually break in to one part of the home, and while they were having dinner,
right,
and they wouldn't know that you were in the house.
Correct. They wouldn't know we were there because they're concentrated in one area, either in the dining area where they're eating or in the family room area. Congregated in one area with the maids, the butlers, and the wife and husband of the house. So they're distracted for a period of time. So we'd only target between 6, which is dusk, and 10 o'clock at night, because usually they go up to bed about that time. The wealthy retire early, whether they go to bed or just watch television or lay in the bed reading or whatever. So the wing of that house is to the right, when you're standing behind it, normally of the kitchen. So it's segregated from the rest of the main house. And, you could drop a safe in that house and they wouldn't hear it, literally. I mean, that's how big a place it is.
I thought that astonished me.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you mentioned in the book was that they would not have their burglar alarms. They would have these elaborate security systems, but they would not be turned on.
Exactly.
Because they were home eating dinner. And this is common because this is common for all of us. We don't think anyone's going to come in while we're home.
No, you think it's going to be your next-door neighbor that gets robbed. That's their common thought. Oh, this wouldn't happen to me. It's going to happen to somebody else. And who's going to rob us while we're in the safety of our house? That's right. The misconception that they had. And, I mean, that went from generation to generation. Remember, this ring's been around since World War II. So, I mean, this was a creature of habit operation. I mean, that's what they relied on. I mean, Pete trained 16 guys in this profession. There were 16 guys at one time operating in this in this ring, nephews and all that kind of stuff.
And it's teams of 3.
Yeah.
One was a driver, and 2 people would actually go in and...
Yeah, one guy would go in and one guy would watch the driveway or watch the people and whistle to let the guy know if he lost visual contact with the people. Like somebody may have got up from the table or the dining room or living room and decided to go up to the master. So you had to let your partner know because he's in the house. So he'd whistle. They'd leave a back window or back door open. And the whistle would trigger him that we've lost contact with one of the people in the house.
What would you do if someone had if you got that whistle? What were you going to just get out of there at that point?
Well, Susan, when we got in the house, the first thing we did was lock the bedroom door or brace it. If we couldn't lock it, we'd put something in front of it.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure that there's always some form of protection between us and the homeowner, so that we could leave if our partner whistled and they do try to brace the door. Then we'd run. We'd get back out the window down and leave. And we never confronted a homeowner. That wasn't in our nature to do that.
I appreciated that too.
Yeah.
And I remember in the book you talked about your tools that you would take. So you would have all these things to go up and in and out of the window and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then each time you would throw the bag away.
Everything gets thrown away. Everything, because whether you know it or not, there's markings of that pry bar that we use to get inside the house that would leave a marking on the window or on the frame or the door or whatever. And they could, if they had the pry bar, they could prove that was the tool that was used to break in. So therefore, all the tools get thrown away at the end of the job. Even the mask, because you might have got glass fragments on the mask that you can't see, or fragments on the gloves. It's there. You just couldn't see it with the naked eye. So we don't chance any of those particles being found on our clothing, because that would tie you to a burglary. Same thing with the shoes. Those imprints can be tied back to a burglary. They take a mold of our feet whenever a burglary goes down. The flower bed, wherever we stepped, they would pour a mold, it's called, and try to keep it on record in case we had the shoes they could put together and make it a circumstantial evidence case. So everything got thrown away.
Everything was thrown away.
Everything.
Now, I also read that you actually took a gem correspondence course.
I took the Smithsonian Institution of Home Study for fine stones and gemology and semi-precious stones. I took the course, yes.
So that you would know the value of what you were looking at, and you could take the best pieces.
Exactly. And I would know what the fence was looking at when I would sell the stuff to a jeweler who's also in the business, and that way my partners wouldn't be able to rob me anymore, because they did for a long time, and that's why we separated. And then I would be able to sell the stuff myself without them being able to cheat me, even the fence. So we either agree on a price or it wouldn't get sold to them.
And this is all sold through Mafia sources?
Oh, yeah, it's all hooked up guys, yeah. Yeah, our fence was with a family, and he was hooked up, and he was brought to us to buy our jewelry early on. I mean, there's no use in stealing something if you can't sell it. And we usually dump the stuff the next day. We'd price it out that night, put it in a package, and go to see the fence the next day, drop it off with a price and a copy of everything that we have in that package so that he couldn't all of a sudden lose something. And we'd come back and negotiate the price. Because once we gave the package, we never wanted it back.
Sure.
Because you only get caught with the merchandise.
That's right. You got rid of it immediately.
Immediately.
It's gone. The tools, the clothes, everything's gone.
Yeah, everything.
The FBI blamed your crew for 3,000 burglaries. Do you think that's accurate?
Between 2,000 and 3,000 they accused us of over a 20-year span. Yeah, since the 60s to the 90s.
Wow, that's astonishing to me.
Yeah,
more than $70 million, and I bet that's conservative.
That's conservative. It's gone as high as 100 before, but that's conservative. That's not what we got. We only got a third of that. But I mean, that's what they.
You personally would only get a third?
Yeah, you only get a third. 30 cents on the dollar.
30 cents on the dollar for whatever you steal.
Exactly. 30. And at that time, that was high. We didn't get that for many years. I mean, I started in this business when gold was, $150 a pennyweight. Now it's $18 a pennyweight, so that's the difference, you know. So, I mean, it used to be $1.50 a pennyweight when I started out. Now it's $18 a pennyweight. So you can see the difference.
Yeah, inflation, right?
Inflation. But we sold many pounds of it at that price.
I guess so. I mean, you knew what you wanted. You knew how to locate this stuff, and I think you told me you used to dump everything in a pillowcase.
We'd take the pillowcase off the bed and make the bed back up, so they wouldn't know if they came in. We'd empty the drawers of the jewelry box. We wouldn't take the box because we want as much time between them and getting away. So if we disturbed the box, they noticed their jewelry box was gone, the owner would know that somebody's been in there. But if we left the box, she wouldn't know it until she went to put her jewelry on that it was gone.
And that could be a couple of weeks.
Could be a couple of weeks, sure. It's been that long.
That gives you all the more time for the jewelry to get disseminated and, I guess, kind of disappear.
Exactly, where it's going. The final resting place, if you call it.
Yes. And you were never caught in the act?
No, I've never been caught in the act. I've been suspected of many jobs, from here to Jacksonville to Georgia, Alabama, New York, and all over. But I was never caught in the act. Pete, through years of later, him and Don were caught in the act in Pennsylvania, went to jail for 15 years up there because they got sloppy on a job and they got caught around the area and with some of the jewelry on them. So they got caught, definitely.
And
but
you got ratted out on another charge.
Right.
Correct?
Circumstantial evidence.
And if you want to talk a little about that.
In 1975, my driver got busted for a murder case, and he told the police that were operating the case at the time that he could give them the dinner set gang, and that made them make him a deal of giving him immunity on the murder case to testify against us in a circumstantial case which was being tried in Florida, where most states you have to have two collaborating witnesses, participants, to find you guilty. In the state of Florida, you only need one participant, and they will use that to convict you. So it was called circumstantial evidence, and I was convicted on 4 counts.
Okay. Very quickly, Walter, because we're heading for our break, I know they're going to be making a movie.
Yeah.
On this book, and I am so excited. You have a couple of very interesting people.
Yeah, we have an offer out to Sidney Lumet, and we've got a couple other backup directors we are looking at, but I'm going to wait and see what Sidney says because he's my first choice, and he's a New York director, and we're going to shoot the film in New York. So that's where we're at right now at this process.
I am so excited, and I hope you get me an invitation to the premiere.
Definitely.
When this comes about. I also wanted to tell everybody that I'm going to be posting an introductory chapter to Walter's book on my website, DearSafetySolutions.com, and I really urge you all to download it and take a look at it. It is a fascinating read about jewel thieves, about the inner workings of the mafia, and about the relationship between Walter and his father, which was just very moving to me, and I just thought, I just think that it's a beautiful story.
Thank you very much.
And I really thank you so much for that.
Okay. I appreciate it, Susan.
Have you ever thought about having your own internet talk show? Well, if you said yes, then click About Us. Then click Be a Host to get more information. Or just call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417.
Say that again?
480-294-6417. VoiceAmerica.com.
Divorce, child custody, support, and visitation, division of property, attorneys, court. Just the thought of divorce is stressful enough. Never mind the combative, destructive, and expensive process. Is there a better way? Yes, divorce mediation. On Divorce Mediation, Myths and Facts, host Philip Mulford, one of the country's top divorce mediators, will discuss this incredibly successful alternative. Formerly a practicing attorney, Philip will explore the myths and facts about a process that has kept his clients out of court and saved them thousands of dollars. If you aren't familiar with divorce mediation, or your lawyer has told you it's not appropriate for your case, this show is for you. After listening to Divorce Mediation, Myths and Facts, you'll tell anyone considering a divorce, go to mediation first. Divorce Mediation, changing changing the culture of divorce.
After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartlestone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartlestone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today. News, opinion. Your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartlestone.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm talking with Walter T. Shaw, the author of A License to Steal. Now, Walter, I asked you to give me a couple of burglary prevention tips today.
Okay.
What's the most important thing from your experience?
If you have an alarm, keep it activated whether you're in the house, out of the house. And even if you just go to the grocery store to buy a quart of milk or a gallon of milk, and you're only gone 10 or 15 minutes in your mind, and things can happen, but a burglary can happen that quick. It's every 8 seconds. It's the third leading crime in America. So just activate the alarm. Lighting is very important, called motion lights, where they are activated by the heat sensors, and that way you'll know it's other than a dog that's triggered that light to go off, because burglars will not stand the light. And if they see anything out of the ordinary like that, they'll usually leave. And the third line of defense is a little small yapper, I call them, a dog. They're wonderful to alert you what's going on, because they will, smell out the intrusion, and they can save your life.
Now, one question that I had about that, because I've talked on an earlier show about not necessarily relying on the family pet for anything more than a warning.
Right, exactly. That's all, a warning.
They're not the ones that are going to deter a burglar if he's a pro.
No, not at all. But it'll make you want to hit the panic button to alert the police that you have an intrusion possibility.
That's if you're at home. If you're not at home, the only thing that dog might deter would be an amateur.
Exactly, an amateur.
But someone who knows what they're doing is not going to be.
No. But the alarm will. If you have the alarm, you have the motion lights, and you have the cameras, which now they're all over the place. I mean, people are putting cameras all over their houses now. From the internet to you name it. If you have the cameras that are activated by movement or by light or by an intrusion, you don't have to always have them on a repeater, as I call it, but you have the camera activate when there's a burglar trying to break in your house, and you'll pick them right up.
Is there any kind of security system that you particularly, if you had seen it, you would have said, no, we're not going to...
The one we had the most difficult with, and I don't like endorsing them because they don't pay me, but it's okay, is ADT. They're one of the they're one of the toughest alarm systems to penetrate. And it's really a fabulous piece of equipment. Or an alarm that is the cellular communicator, which operates like a cell phone in the attic. You can't get to it. And that triggers. It's a wireless alarm, and it's operated by Motorola, called Cellular Communicator, and they're very tough to dismantle because you have to get in the attic to do it. And they dial the police automatically.
So if you saw any indication of that, you would kind of cross that off.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it. Exactly.
Question I did want to ask you about the signs for the alarms. This seems to be a little bit of a controversy in my field because some people say that if you put, protected by ADT or whatever, if you've got a clever burglar, they can actually get the schematic.
Buy the schematic. They can buy the schematic. But if you do a generic sign, what are they going to buy?
So you like that one better?
I like that one the best. Definitely. Protected by, secured by, and don't label what it is because they'll try to get the schematic.
On an earlier show, I'd actually talked. There was another burglar who wrote a book, and one of these super thieves, and he said you can put a sign that says this building is protected by hidden motion detector sensors or something.
Great, that's wonderful.
Very generic, and that would actually make you say, I'm not so sure about this particular home.
Exactly, you'd bypass it. I like that idea too.
That is great. Any one last thought before?
No, just the point that I think that if they have the alarm, they should keep it activated, whether they're in the house, out of the house, or whether they've gone away. I mean, that's the best advice I can give them.
Good advice, Walter.
And not brag about what you have, what kind of jewelry your husband bought you, or where you keep it, or there's nobody's business but yours.
Well, indeed, I like that advice very much. Well, I thank you so much for being with me today. Remember the links to Walter's book and his website and an introductory chapter is going to be on my website, dearsafetysolutions.com. And all you have to do is click on the banner for Crime Prevention 101 radio show. And I'm also going to have some resources that I mentioned earlier in the show will be listed there. And there's also a lot of safety tips on my website. There's a page just for safety tips, and there are some other burglary and home invasion tips that you might like to look at as well. I also want to tell everyone that if you've got a question about today's show or a comment that you'd like to make, or if you'd like some more information from Walter, I know where to find him, and I can email him with your questions. Also, if you have a safety concern that you'd like some help with, either on the air or off the air, just go to my website, dearsafetysolutions.com, and post it in the response box there. You're going to find there, and or email me, and I will be very, very happy to help you out with whatever your dilemma is. And if you'd like to read your question to me live on the show, put that in the email as well, and we'll see if we can arrange it. This is a pre-recorded show, but I do have the ability to get folks on and talk to me personally. I'd also like to say, for those of you out there who are already a survivor of any kind of crime, like we're talking about today on the show, or any other kind of crime, please remember that nothing that happened to you was your fault. If you had that burglar alarm and you didn't put it on and the house got burglared, that's not your fault. Even if you think you used bad judgment in a situation that left yourself vulnerable, it's not an excuse for a crime or for violence. So it's really important to call yourself a survivor and not a victim, and to understand that with the proper professional help, you can put what happened into perspective and get on with your life. I'd also, at this point, like to talk a little bit about next week. We're going to continue on with the theme of home safety, preventing burglaries and home invasions. And I'm going to be talking with a home security specialist who has more than 20 years' experience actually working with ADT, the company that Walter was apprehensive about, and she has designed more than 1,000 security systems for residences and also for commercial establishments. And I've got lots of tips and tricks for you that you might be able to use against the run-of-the-mill kinds of burglars. There's a tip sheet on the website with a lot of interesting things about burglaries. So I'm going to tell you, stay tuned and stay safe.
We hope you got some useful information and inspiration this week on Crime Prevention 101. Susan Bartlestone invites you to join us again next Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time here on Voice America. Have a great weekend and a safe weekend.